Colonel Vindman, you were the first to prepare me for exactly what was going to happen, and anyone that heard you. You want to take a stab at John Heileman's question?
Yeah, so I'd say just starting with the near-term target, we're getting ready for a second offensive. Basically, the Russian forces around the northern portion of the country, around Kiev, around Kharkiv, are doing something called consolidating, reorganizing. They're making sure there are logistics in place. In certain areas, they even pulled back to secure their supply lines. They're going to try to get this convoy that is northwest of the city moving. And they're going to go for round two. I think, frankly, they're going to come up with the same kind of resistance. They're better prepared. They know that now there's going to be stiff resistance, but they haven't faced a force that's fighting for the capital, that's entrenched. With regards to prepared defenses, the ratio of superiority that you're looking for, depending on how prepared it is 5-1. And there is no way that the Russians have nearly enough combat power to try to secure, let alone assault the city. So he's going to resort to aerial bombardments, and it's going to be a devastating attack on the jewel of, I would say, the Eastern world in a lot of ways. It's a beautiful city. It's the Garden City, is what it's often referred to. And he's going to wreck it in his efforts to try to seize this city, the center of gravity for his entire military campaign. If he believes he could secure Kiev, then he could actually move on and potentially compel the surrender of other cities in the region. That's also a false premise, but that's what he's thinking about. He would need the entire military force that he's arrayed throughout the entire country to accomplish his objectives in the city in any reasonable time frame. So this is going to go play out in months, but it's going to take him. He seems to be hard to learn. His chauvinism, his Russian chauvinism of Russian power, Russian exceptionalism. He's still not getting the message that this is not going to be a quick, easy campaign. And as this goes on, as he gets frustrated, I think there are all sorts of things that we could see unfolding. The attack on the maternity hospital in Mariupol is just the tip of the iceberg. We don't, I think a lot of our political class doesn't really understand how difficult this is going to be, how many civilian casualties there are going to be in the city of Kiev with a population of about 2 million, even after refugees departed. So this is going to get worse. And we're going to eventually get involved in one way or another. And there's just still a great deal of wishful thinking about the U.S. staying removed from this and this war not spilling over.
Well, Colonel Vindman, that's my question. I mean, you just laid out in detail the thing that I said in 1 second, which was Vladimir Putin can't win. Not only can not win this war, but even just in terms of Kyiv, he can't take Kyiv easily. He can't hold Kyiv. You're looking at the kind of shelling that you're talking about, seeing happen in a much larger city, what we've seen in Mariupol and some of these other cities. That kind of devastation playing out over days, weeks, potentially months. So that, but Putin never being able to achieve the military objective that he seems to want. On the other side, though, the other premise is that Ukraine, though performing heroically, being able to defend these cities, not being able to deny him victory, not having the kind of strength, even with all the weapons we're sending, even with all the money we're sending, even with if we give them planes that they want, we just don't do it as publicly as some have suggested this week, still not being able to expel him. So is that not a recipe for a bloody stalemate? And if that is a recipe for a bloody stalemate, what breaks it? What are the plausible paths to breaking that stalemate? Unless I'm wrong that there's some way that you believe that Ukraine could actually, on its own, with the assistance of the West, as we're currently giving it, actually somehow expel the Russian forces from not just from Kyiv, but from out of the country entirely.
I think actually Ukraine can do this. They may very well be able to do it on their own, but it's going to be a long, bloody campaign. So really the question is, can the Ukrainian military and the Ukrainian population wear down the Russian armed forces sufficiently quickly to avert a humanitarian disaster? At this rate, it doesn't look like it. It's just going to be a bloody, bloody campaign. And the U.S. could play a constructive role in actually reducing the humanitarian cost by arming Ukraine. If the U.S. were to choose to take action sooner rather than later, provide Ukraine with unmanned combat aerial vehicles, with additional air defense, pour in as much equipment as the Ukrainian armed forces need, the Ukrainians could very well achieve these effects on their own. Just grind down, as they've been doing, the Russian armored formations, Russia's ability to conduct aerial bombardments, strike targets in Russian bases across the border where these planes are flying out of. We can do that, and we can avert this catastrophe. Otherwise, we're headed for a long, protracted conflict in which, again, the likelihood of spilling over because of the human toll is going to be high. We have to remember, in World War I, we didn't go in for the we sat out the first 3 years of war. War started in 1914. We didn't enter until 1917. Second World War, the war started in 1939. We didn't enter until the end of 1941, really 1942. We eventually get dragged into protracted wars in Europe. There's a lesson there. And we, the best thing we could do to avoid that is to get involved. I think there's a very kind of famous line from Winston Churchill. Americans will always do the right thing after exhausting all other alternatives. And that's really what that's the formula we're operating under right now. I think there's still a great deal of wishful thinking from this administration that it stays limited. We're going to get dragged in. We just need to make some courageous decisions now that are not risky. They're risk-informed, but we refuse to do that. We're intransigent based on some misplaced fears of risk.